Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Football Brief. Um, Something slightly different. This is just me this evening. It's now, what time is it now? 6 p.m. in New York. I've just watched Liverpool versus Aston Villa, and whilst I know that this podcast and these episodes are about everything to do with football, mainly the Premier League, I know that we try and diversify the content. However, I am an Aston Villa fan, and I need a space to speak about my thoughts on the game. And I am doing an individual or a separate podcast for Villa stuff, Villa related things. However, that will be launching after the international break or during, depending on a couple of little things. So as of now, all I have is this platform to speak all things Aston Villa. And yeah, I just want to touch on a few things. Firstly, excuse the somber mood, the sort of flat mood. As you know, or those that have watched, those that are listening, Villa fans especially, you'll know we just lost the game 2-0. Again, same words are going to be bandied around describing this performance. Lack of focus, lack of sharpness, tired, individual errors. These same words, phrases are being used for, at least our last 3 to 4 games. And look, if anybody was in any doubt that we were going through a rough spell, well, you're not in doubt anymore because that's continued. And I know Liverpool's a tough game. Going to Anfield is always going to be a tough game. And I know some people have said it was a bit of a free hit. However, thanks to Unai Emery, no game that we play in now is a free hit. We are expected, or we as a fan base now expect to win these games. And that is a confidence and a belief that Unai Emery has instilled in us as a fan base, as a team, as a club as a whole. So whilst I'm very much appreciative that Anfield is a tough place to go, I'm still annoyed that we lost the game. And again, it's not the fact that we lost the game. Anyone can lose at Anfield to Liverpool. It's the manner of performance again. I think it was quite fitting, really, that Arne Slot, pre-match or doing his interview yesterday, his comments were that we've been playing the same way for so long now. I think that, we're easy to play against, or it's easy to come up with tactics or a solution to stop us playing. And I think that was completely true and was vindicated tonight during our performance. We're so narrow. We are so narrow. And look, I need to preface this by saying that I am no expert tactician in football. So those who want to jump on and say their piece and comment and hate, go ahead, man. No offense taken here. It's just what I see. It's just my opinion. We are so narrow, which in many games across the last season, 2 seasons, has served us so well. But we've always had that outlet with a Bailey or a Diaby. We don't have that outlet anymore because Diaby, as we know, is gone. And Bailey, for whatever reason, is shot of confidence. He's not the same Bailey that we all love and know. He's not the same Bailey that was doing great things last season, scoring winners against Manchester City, cutting in from the right side, getting record amounts of assists and goals for his personal tally. That is not the Leon Bailey we have at the minute. As a fan base, we need to get around him and just bide our time with him, which I do believe, looking at X and looking at various platforms, yeah, there's frustration, obviously, but there does seem to be a respect for Leon Bailey and his, amid his recent struggles. So that's good. but we don't have that width anymore. And I know Unai doesn't. It's weird. He doesn't really play with width yet. He likes, we have wingers. Well, we have a winger, but on the left side with Jacob Ramsey, he seems to bring a fair bit of balance to that side. But then on the right side, we have Leon Bailey, who isn't that natural defensive worker. He does get back, he does work hard, but it's not natural to him, where I think Jacob Ramsey is. So for me, the right side is completely unbalanced. Couple that with the fact that Matty Cash isn't fit, barely plays at the minute. When he does play, he's not the greatest, but he's still only recognised right back. So then we put Konza there, and I'm going to say it. Look, Konza ain't been all that either. Konza's not been at it. Ollie Watkins has not been at it. Emi Martinez has not been at it. John McGinn has not been at it. Granted, he was better tonight, but he has not been at it at all. It's not just Leon Bailey. It's not just Matty Cash. These scapegoats that people want to keep using. As a team, we are off form. We are not the same. Last game, Youri Tielemans couldn't set up a set piece to save his life. His delivery was poor, which isn't like him. So we need a bit of perspective at the minute. We are struggling as a team. It's not just one or two individuals, but just going back to the point, we are so narrow. We are easy to play against now. All an opposition team has to do is cut out those channel passes. Youri Tielemans, I can't think the last time he did a decent through ball. He's tried to do a decent through ball, but it's been cut out at the source, or it's been stopped mid-channel. Those balls that he wants to get into Rodgers on the turn, or Ollie Watkins on the turn, those balls aren't happening. So what we're doing is, our favoured thing at the minute is going down the left-hand side, sort of dragging players in, opening that space up to get Digne down the flank and setting him up so he can put a cross in, which is great. It's great as a play several times a game, but to rely on that, to rely on Digne's delivery to be bob on all the time, it's asking quite a lot, and for me, it isn't really working. So Arnie Slot's comments pretty apt. I think he's right. I think we are too easy to play against now, and that's not to say I don't like watching us play. Usually I do. However, the last 2 to 3 weeks have been frustrating, to say the least. It's been really, really frustrating to watch, because playing that system requires a lot of concentration, a lot of players to be on the same level, the same wavelength. As soon as 2 or 3 players aren't quite at it, it then has an effect for the whole team. Try and think of some positives. I thought Onana was decent. I thought for the first few minutes, I thought he, similar to the Tottenham game, the first half at least in the Tottenham game, I thought he was breaking up play quite well. He was physically present. He was quite dominant in interceptions, I feel. That's how I saw it anyway. His passing, going forward, he's getting there, but I just liked that he was breaking it up and he was a presence in midfield. What's screwing him over at the minute is our forward line. So you look at Rodgers, you look at Watkins, you look at Bailey, their ball retention at the minute is so poor. It's what happens is the ball goes into feet, or the ball goes in behind. They get the ball, so Watkins will pick the ball up, or Bailey or Rodgers, and they can glide through players. They can get so far up the pitch, but then rather than holding on to it and finding that sensible pass, it's almost they take that one pass that they take on that one man too many, or they try and make that pass too late on. The ball gets turned over, and then at midfield, your Onanas of the world, your Tielemans, are on the back foot again. And a team like Liverpool, who you saw tonight on their corners and just in general when that ball got turned over, they are gone. Such endurance, the explosive power that Salah, Diaz, even that Gravenbach? Can't say his name. They're so explosive going forward. Like, it's a defender's nightmare. So better ball retention was needed, and we weren't doing that. So the ball get turned over. Onana and Tielemans and Ramsey are sort of pushing up the pitch. That ball comes in, that ball gets turned over. And then Liverpool are off. And as much as I love Torres, and as much as I think Carlos is a competent defender, he's not a great defender, he's competent. Against pace and power, they're not it. And then you've got Konza, arguably our best centre-back, who is a right-back, who then is required to try and come across and cover, but he's already doing right-back duty. So it's all a bit of a mess. It's all a bit misshapen. It's all a bit misaligned. It's all a bit unbalanced, in my opinion. So that's how I see it. I mean, I could be talking to a lot of people out there, a lot of waffle, a lot of nonsense, but that's how I see it. Sounds simple. Obviously, it's not, and I'm sure there's more to it than that. And Unai I'm sure would contest what I'm saying, but that's what it looks like. So again, going back to Arne Slot's comments, we seem pretty simple to play against. Oh, Villa, well, they've got a couple of key passers in your Pau Torres and your Yuri Tielemans. If we can cut those balls out at the source or stop them playing through those channels, they haven't got much. When they do get the ball in those forward areas, crowd them out. And then when we turn the ball over, their defence and midfield aren't quick enough for our explosive power to push through on the counter-attack and, ultimately score. It sounds really simple, but that's how I see it, and that's what frustrated me tonight. I thought Jacob Ramsey was amazing. Amazing might be a bit of a stretch, but from where he's been and, injury hit sort of last year and a half, arguably 2 years, he's been looking better and better in the last sort of month or so. Of course, I was going to say he was probably putting in one of his better, if not best, performance for a long time. I thought he was good last week as well, but I thought the first half against Liverpool, he was a threat going forward. He was defensively getting back. He just seemed like back to Jacob Ramsey, and of course he then pulls up with what looks like is a hamstring injury. So we'll wait to see. But that was frustrating. But it was a shining light in the first half, or the first few minutes anyway. Konza at right back, I'm not against it. I'd rather he not play there, but I'm not one of these fans who's like, oh, Konza should not be playing there. Don't play there. You need to play centre back. There are certain games where I think right back he's required. Today wasn't that game. And again, Konza, one of the players I think is out of form. He does a lot of things off the ball. He does a lot of things on the ball that are great. And we sort of take it for granted because he just pulls in 8, 9 out of 10 performances most weeks. I think recently he's not been at it. I don't think he's been his best. Personally, I think he's been a bit sloppy in possession. I think there was a moment today that sort of summed him up a bit recently. He marauded forward and got into such a great position just to cut the ball back or cross it across the box or pass it, whatever. And he just sort of ran out of steam and just gave the ball away. And then he's out of position and then we almost got caught on the counter. That was a warning from Liverpool, really, that this is how they're going to play. Get that ball, turn it over, and we are gone. That annoyed me because it's like someone of Konza's experience. And yes, he's not a right back, but he's been playing there enough in the last year to know what to do and what not to do, and he's experienced. So that frustrated me. He could have done better and can do better. So again, not me digging players out. I'm just trying to sort of put perspective on the whole team and emphasis on the whole team and not just individuals like Bailey and Cash. I think it's a collective, and I'm just pointing out those issues that I've noticed with certain players. This might not please many fans again. I actually thought the referee had a good game in the first half. I thought what I've seen in recent weeks with referees is that they're too quick to dish out yellow cards. It's just card happy, which then, it then puts the game in jeopardy of just becoming a ball fest because players are being cautious because they know they're on a yellow already and they don't want to overdo it and get a second yellow. So I thought David Coote actually managed the game fairly well in the first half. Even when Liverpool scored, to be honest, I was annoyed at the goal, the manner of the goal. But I actually thought the way he reffed it from a Liverpool point of view was good. Let the game go on. I thought there was a few challenges in the game that he let slide. I thought that he sort of let the game flow as much as it could. So I've seen a lot of hate on X for David Coote from both sides of fans. I thought he was okay, personally. I know fans are clamouring for a penalty with Pau Torres. It wasn't a penalty for me. He looked like, he sort of stepped on him and just went over in a bit of a heap. It's desperation that we've got at the minute to get penalties. Ollie Watkins was at it earlier. it just, and I don't care if fans and people want to say that I'm anti-Villa or that, you're not sticking up for your team. Like, I am more than sticking up for my team, and I have done over the last few weeks. However, I'm going to call it how I see it, and I don't want to fall into this desperation because we're not winning, that penalties that aren't penalties should be penalties. That's not how I am, and that's not how I'm going to be. So, yeah, sorry, that's just what I think. So I actually think there was any penalty shout. I'm trying to think. There was that one where Torres went over. I didn't think it was a penalty. There was one on his shirt. That could have been. We've seen them given. That could have been a penalty, but soft. I'm just sort of fed up with excuses. I think in my head, like, I don't want excuses. I don't want to be, oh, well, we could have had a penalty. We should have had this. Let's just do our job in the first place, and, let's stop conceding goals, and let's make goals, let's score goals, and then we won't be in these positions where we're like clamoring for excuses. Like, I'm not about that. So yeah, I actually thought he was quite good, but that's just me. Corners. I mean, the first one was a warning. The first one, I say the first one, they scored from it, I believe. Was it the first corner? Well, either way, that counter-attack was immense. And Leon Bailey did his best to get sent off and try and save us the goal. But unfortunately, I don't know how you want to look at it. He stayed on the pitch, and obviously they scored. But how we've let that materialise at least 3 times during the match just seems a bit sloppy from us, and just doesn't seem very Unai. Now, I don't know if set pieces he just lets Austin McPhee do his thing and he doesn't get involved. I find that hard to believe, knowing Unai, knowing from what we see of him. I find it hard to believe that he just lets Austin McPhee have full reign and doesn't have any input. But it just feels like after the first time and they scored, why is it then happening again? Why are we not making sure that we've got, I don't know, faster players waiting on the halfway line or in between the halfway line and the 18-yard, whatever we're doing, or whoever's staying there? Because we know Liverpool, if that ball gets turned over, they are gone. Salah's gone. Diaz gone. Núñez gone. I just felt like usually Unai would sort of cut that out or try and stamp that out after the first mistake, but it just seemed like we kept letting it happen and happen. That annoyed me. And I do think this season, I think pace and power from opposition is really, really catching us out. Again, I really do rate Torres, and he's a bit like Konza, where he turns in, 8, 9 out of 10 performances most weeks. However, when he comes up against a player of stature or physicality, my man struggles. You know what I mean? He's lovely on the ball, great passer, very, pretty to watch and all that. But when it comes to like the real physicality and trying to get, shoulder to shoulder with a defender an attacker, he just struggles. Then you've got the opposite side there. You've got Carlos, who is like an action man, who physically can go up against bigger players, but like he's always got to take it too far. There was a moment at the start of the game where he had his hands on Núñez and sort of like pushed him a bit to the ground. And obviously there was nothing given. It wasn't a penalty. There wasn't even like a talk of a penalty. But I was like, mate, get your arms down. Stop handling and touching people in the box, because he's got this like knack just to push and just get really aggressive, and it's just a bit of a red card or a yellow card waiting to happen, and it just frustrates me. So between the pair of them, I don't think, like, the cool, calm, composed one out of all of them is probably Konza, because he's got all of the ability to sort of, to physically wrestle with players. Then he's got the composure to get the ball. He's got a bit of pace. So that then just vindicates further why he should be starting centre back. And I'm sorry, not Diego Carlos. I just think Carlos has been good for a time. He's good in certain games, but I just think, he's done too much wrong there to warrant a starting position in my eyes, when you've got Konza, who can easily play a centre back. And I just think right back, we've got Nedeljkovic. I don't know why. Clearly there's something Unai is not too keen on. Maybe he's too lightweight. I just feel like as a right back, he gives us a bit more. He's a bit more akin to that role. But who am I? Yeah. Lastly, we cannot play with two strikers or two forwards at the minute. Whether it's Watkins or Rodgers or Watkins or Duran, there just doesn't seem to be chemistry at the minute. Rodgers will work his socks off. He will tirelessly try and link up with Watkins and selfishly always tries to feed him. And I don't think he always picks the right options, because too many times over the last 2 to 3 weeks, I've seen Rodgers on the turn, running, trying to get the ball to Watkins, but Watkins goes a bit too early or Rodgers passes too late, and like they just don't seem to be in tune with one another. And then Duran will come on, sometimes for Rodgers or sometimes for Bailey or someone. So like you've got sometimes Watkins, Duran, Rodgers in behind. And like it just doesn't seem to be, it just doesn't seem to flow. And I really struggle to see how they can all fit in this system. And there's been a couple of games where Rodgers and Watkins have looked okay, but I've seen glimpses. That's it. And for those two players, I just expect them to be better. So that doesn't help when we're not sort of firing from the front line and they're not really cohesive. So for me, that's an issue that needs fixing. I'm hoping this break's come at the right time. I think we need a big reset. But then half the team is now out bloody on for international duty, which I think is a big issue why we have injuries and fatigue. Like I don't get these friendlies or these Nation League cover-up friendly, whatever you want to call it. It's really starting to annoy me. I just don't think we need them. I think, yes, we need some international fixtures to sort of, galvanise the group and get them together and keep things ticking over for the national sides. But to have it 3 times already at the start of the season, in the midst of all of these cup games and these league games, it's just not needed. And then plus that, you've got the certain players travelling miles across the world. So, and I know you're going to turn around and say, well, they're getting paid for it. It's football. They should love it. Of course, I'm sure they do love it. And I'm sure, it's an honour and all this. But we suffer at club level. We look so fatigued out there today. Again, like we have done for the last 2-3 weeks. We look a bit leggy. We just don't look as sharp, not as focused. And, there's a lot of factors that go into it. The fact that you're playing so many minutes, the fact that you are having to endure certain crowds, the fact that the time of a game, the travelling for European games and all this. Like, I know it sounds great and is a dream for most of us. Of course, I'd love to do it, but it does come with its cons, and I think we're seeing the cons this season. I think we're seeing players. The beauty is we've got such an international, such an international squad littered with talented players. But with that, they're all getting called up to squads. Luca Dean has now been called up for the last few games for France. So like he's now back and forth. Ian Matson back and forth. Onana. I think Tielemans is now having a rest because he's got a bit of a dodgy knee, so he's resting up, which is great. But McGinn, who already looks tired, he's back on duty. Morgan Rodgers, the fast that he is going to the under-21s, he's not needed. For me, it's just a wasted exercise. For him, he's great because he's representing his country, and I don't want people to think that I wouldn't want to represent my country, but I just think there's times and there's I just think that there are certain times when we don't need to be piling these fixtures to already congested fixture lists. And now is those times. And looking at Villa's squad, yeah, I think we're struggling. It's funny because I think people listening to this are going to, get the violin out, like, oh, woe is me, Aston Villa, poor them. You're in Champions League, you're doing this, you're doing that. Doesn't stop the fact that I do think we're suffering from some of this fixture congestion. So they're my thoughts anyway. I sometimes find it helps just to vent and get things off your chest when you just watched a game that you're not happy with. So yeah, sorry for the depressing pod. to the Villa fans out there, but that's where we're at the minute. Look, on the whole, we are in an amazing position, so I don't want to be too negative. I want us to continue riding this Villa wave of euphoria with the way that we play, the way that we're building, what Unai wants us to deliver. There are going to be bumps in the road. We're currently going over quite a big speed bump, but I trust Unai. I trust the players that we'll get back to some form of consistency and level of performance that we can all be proud of. So let's just calm down on the socials. Let's stop digging players out, digging everybody out. I get there's raw emotion and I get we want opinions, but let's give opinions with a balanced perspective. Do you know what I mean? Let's not, it's not all doom and gloom. So, we're right to have our gripes. We're right to be annoyed. And that's testament to Unai and the players for instilling that in us now and thinking that we can, believing that we can just beat anybody, because we can. On our day, we can. And I hate that saying, on our day, we can beat anybody, but it's true. Like, we actually can. But with that, there's going to be downtime. So it's got to, take the rough with the smooth and move on. So anyway, I've been waffling for too long. But that's my piece. Like I say, after the international break, I will be launching my own separate pod as well, just to talk all things Aston Villa. It will be the Villain in NYC, which is also my Twitter handle, as some of you know. So that'll be going out there. Obviously, the football brief will continue. Next time, I'll be back with my co-host Brad, and hopefully, we will be I'll be in a much more happier mood and not so serious. But yeah. So as always, please comment, like, subscribe. We are on all platforms: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and obviously we've dropped some shorts on TikTok and newly Instagram, which is still getting up and running. So just bear with us. So yeah, I have been Aaron, talking all things Villa. Maybe like a little special. I'll put like a little special heading on. This is an Aston Villa special. So all those fans that aren't bothered about this, fine. I'm not going to call it a meltdown because it's not quite a meltdown. Although to some fans it might be. It probably sounds like it's a meltdown. But anyway, yes, I have been Aaron at the Football Brief, and I will see you guys very soon. As always, pleased to brief you.